It is over for Rachel Zegler. Her career is done. She will be lucky if she makes it on a direct-to-DVD Steven Seagal movie at this point.
Disney has been on a roller coaster ride of remakes and reboots for years, reviving old classics with modern twists in ways that either spark excitement or ignite controversy. But with their live-action Snow White project, the conversation spiraled out of control faster than anyone could have predicted. It wasn't just about changing a beloved tale, it was also about casting choices, storyline overhauls, and one outspoken leading lady named Rachel Zegler. She went from being a rising star to the center of a social media storm, all while Disney tried to dodge the backlash coming from every corner of the internet. The craziest part, this firestorm caught the attention of South Park, notorious for roasting pop culture dramas in the most brutal and often painfully accurate ways. Once South Park set its sights on Disney's Snow White controversies, it was as though a match had been tossed onto a barrel of fireworks. And here's the kicker, some insiders say they're not done yet. Rumor has it that another South Park feature targeting diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI, in Hollywood could be on the horizon, potentially driving this saga to new levels of spectacle. But don't be fooled, this is only the beginning of an even bigger story, one that reveals what happens when a massive studio tries to please everyone yet ends up offending nearly everyone instead. Ready to see just how much deeper this rabbit hole goes? Keep watching, because it's about to get even wilder. Disney has always been the gold standard for animated classics, yet over the past decade, the entertainment giant has shifted gears, pouring resources into live-action remakes of everything from The Lion King to Mulan. On paper, it sounds like a guaranteed success. Take a well-loved story, cast big names, and add modern elements to attract new fans. But what Disney didn't anticipate was how these changes could backfire when they touch on sensitive topics or alter iconic narratives too drastically. The push for more inclusive storytelling is commendable in theory. Viewers have been increasingly vocal about wanting to see greater diversity on screen, stronger female leads, and updated narratives that speak to our current era. However, the process can become clumsy when studios appear to be checking boxes rather than crafting sincere adaptations. Over the years, Disney has faced criticism for everything from whitewashing characters to token representation. The moment they announced that Snow White, an iconic fairy tale with a title that literally references her skin, would feature Rachel Zegler, a Latina actress, people had opinions. Supporters applauded the progressive casting, but many fans were taken aback, especially when they learned the rest of the story would also be radically changed.
The controversies surrounding Disney's Snow White remake show that we are still in the thick of the culture wars. Oh, have we been following the Snow White?
Actually, the first I'm hearing of this.
Really?
No. Yeah.
Okay.
Good for you.
Well,
After all, the Snow White we grew up with wasn't just about the color of her skin. She had a story that revolved around innocence, romance, and the dwarfs who befriended her. As details trickled out, no prince, minimal romance, dwarfs replaced by a ragtag group of CGI friends. The internet buzzed with rumors that Disney was bending over backward to fit a modern mold. For some, it felt less like a genuine reimagining and more like an elaborate PR move designed to pander. Rachel Zegler's subsequent interviews magnified these suspicions tenfold. But if you think Disney's reworking of a childhood classic was already controversial, buckle up. Rachel's personal approach to the role and her scathing opinions about the original tale threw this entire production into a frenzy, and that's where the real sparks started to fly. From the moment Disney announced Rachel Zegler would play Snow White, the online debates ignited. On one side were those who believed this was a fresh, diverse take on a tale that's been retold for nearly a century. On the other were purists who argued that altering the core elements, like the heroine's appearance, would strip the story of its identity.
I mean, they're projected to lose between 2 and 400 million on this.
It's over. It's a wrap. Because her entire career rested on this Snow White movie being a success, and it ain't looking good.
While some level of controversy was inevitable, Rachel's own interviews took the tension to another level. Early on, Rachel began describing the original Snow White as outdated, questioning the prince's role and implying that the classic romance was not just stale, but borderline problematic. She insinuated that he was little more than a stalker, overshadowing Snow White and turning her into a damsel in distress. Fans who adored the traditional love story felt insulted, while casual casual observers were puzzled about why an actress chosen to honor a legacy film appeared to be dismissing the very source material that brought her the spotlight. Making matters worse, Rachel joked in one interview that she didn't need certain viewers to watch the film if they still preferred the classical version. This statement ballooned on social media, where critics framed it as the actress's open contempt for original fans. Suddenly, she wasn't just a casting choice, she became the face of what some labeled as Disney's woke agenda. While she may have intended to showcase confidence and independence, her tone fueled the notion that the studio was systematically dismantling beloved tales under the guise of modernization. Rachel's remarks, whether misunderstood or precisely as they sounded, thrust the movie into a full-blown PR nightmare. Articles, YouTube commentaries, and social media threads lit up with debates. Was the problem truly the casting, or did it lie in the dismissive attitude toward the tale's essence? Either way, the chatter had grown so loud, so heated, that it caught the eye of some of the entertainment industry's sharpest satirists. And that's where the real fun begins, because once South Park entered the scene, Disney discovered that an already blazing controversy could be cranked up to scorching. Stay tuned to find out how one animated show took aim at the entire fiasco and left everyone scrambling.
I think Rachel Zegler probably wants this too. I think Rachel Zegler, she probably wants people to forget about this movie. She wants people to forget this entire experience. She would probably appreciate Disney just making this movie go away.
Long before South Park dropped its proverbial anvil, Disney had already complicated the narrative with sweeping changes to the Snow White story. Gone was the central element of romance that for many formed the heart of the original. The dwarfs, meanwhile, underwent a metamorphosis. Some early leaks suggested they wouldn't even be dwarfs at all, but rather a culturally diverse group of companions designed to sidestep any accusations of stereotype. Disney eventually pivoted toward a more familiar depiction, but only after waves of criticism and confusion. The end result was a patchwork of reshoots and CGI that left fans uncertain whether the studio had a clear vision from the start. This avalanche of changes sparked questions about what makes a remake worthwhile. Classics endure because their storytelling resonates across generations. Tweaking out-of-date elements can bring a tale into modern times, but gutting its core risks alienating the original audience. Disney, it seemed, was attempting to insulate itself from controversy by preemptively eliminating anything that might raise an eyebrow, from romantic story arcs to whimsical dwarfs. Ironically, this approach generated more criticism than a straightforward adaptation ever would have. Critics of the direction pointed out that by trying to modernize every element, Disney might lose the magic that made Snow White an enduring cultural milestone in the first place. A strong, independent Snow White can still be a compelling heroine, but not if her story is marred by awkward plot holes and obvious pandering. For some, it felt like a checklist was being used to rewrite the film. Remove potential problematic elements. Check. Cast for maximum demographic reach. Check. Replace iconic comedic sidekicks with a random assortment of companions. Check. But even as controversy churned, most people assumed the worst was over. Then came South Park with its Pandaverse.
A series of controversies is threatening to derail the opening of Disney's latest big-budget blockbuster. I'm talking about the live-action remake of Snow White, which will be out next week.
Throwing a massive spotlight on everything fans had been complaining about, and adding its signature brand of savage humor to drive the point home. What happened next was a takedown so brutal that Disney found itself in desperate damage control mode. For over 2 decades, South Park has fearlessly tackled every hot-button issue imaginable, from religious institutions to political scandals. When news broke that they were crafting a new special called Join the Pandaverse, plenty of pop culture enthusiasts guessed that Hollywood's trend of remaking classics with hyper-focus on diversity would be a prime target. They were right. Once the special aired, Disney's Snow White fiasco was front and center as a biting example of what happens when a studio clumsily shoehorns modern ideals into nostalgic material. The special wasted no time mocking the notion that diversity itself, not storytelling or artistry, was Hollywood's newest currency. Characters like Cartman found themselves reimagined as older women of color, constantly complaining about the patriarchy. The message wasn't a condemnation of diverse representation, but rather a tongue-in-cheek jab at forced inclusivity done in the most superficial way possible. And in the background of this satirical meltdown was a direct nod to Snow White, an example of a beloved story that had been so radically refitted it was almost unrecognizable. Rachel Zegler didn't escape the crosshairs. South Park has a knack for lampooning public figures who thrust themselves into controversy, and her interviews, where she bashed the original narrative and came across dismissive, served up prime comedic fodder. In the special, the actress was portrayed, in spirit if not in exact likeness, as someone more interested in rewriting a classic to suit modern sensibilities than in honoring what made it iconic. The jokes landed squarely because they echoed the exact complaints that had swirled among fans for months. Disney, meanwhile, allegedly tried to smooth things over behind the scenes. But if history has shown us anything, it's that South Park thrives on attempts to censor them. The moment a studio or public figure tries to rein them in, they double down. And that's exactly what seemed to happen here.
Now, fans are growing more concerned about Disney's new Snow White remake, mostly because of what the lead actress has been saying to the press. Rachel Zegler has been described as a walking PR disaster for Disney.
Rumors quickly circulated that South Park was already cooking up more content targeting the same issues. As the dust settled from this roast, another bombshell dropped. A rumored DEI special from South Park aimed at doubling down on their critique. Think the Pandaverse was harsh? Strap in, because the next wave might just expose more than anyone at Disney is prepared to handle. Whispers began circulating that South Park was preparing another project to explore diversity, equity, and inclusion in mainstream entertainment. While details remain sketchy, one undeniable focus will likely be the catastrophic reception of the live-action Snow White. If Pandaverse laid the groundwork by mocking forced representation, any follow-up could go straight for the jugular by dissecting box office returns, social media backlash, and the internal chaos within Disney's marketing and PR departments. Insiders hint that this rumored DEI special could be a direct sequel to Pandaverse, picking up where it left off. The idea? Poke fun at the very metric studios used to justify these remakes: projected toy sales, streaming performance, international market viability. After all, if the newly reimagined Snow White doesn't rake in the profits Disney is banking on, it's not just a creative misfire, but a financial one too. And when money enters the equation, executives start sweating bullets. Meanwhile, fans and casual viewers alike are eager to see how much further South Park will push the envelope. With Snow White so publicly mired in PR disasters, the show's creators have ample raw material for satire. Every ill-conceived interview, every contradictory statement about the dwarfs, and every box office projection that doesn't meet targets is like a goldmine of comedic potential. But how long can this cycle continue? Will Disney manage to course correct before the rumored special drops, or are they already in too deep to avoid South Park's relentless lens?
There's more. There's always more. Let's have a listen.
I mean, you know, the original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so. There's a big focus on her love story.
More importantly, how is all this shaping the broader Hollywood landscape? Because what happens next might set the tone for how studios approach classic remakes in the future. Behind closed doors, the stakes have never been higher for everyone involved. Rachel Zegler is reportedly fuming at the negative press. Sources claim she envisioned her portrayal of Snow White as a bold, forward-thinking move, a chance to reintroduce a timeless character to new generations. Instead, she's been slammed by critics who accuse her of disrespecting the original film and piggybacking on a woke campaign. Public sentiment is tricky, and once fans sense an actor's disdain for beloved source material, the backlash can be merciless. Disney, for its part, finds itself in a precarious position. The studio can't simply scrap the project. Too much money and reputation are on the line, but every time they adjust the formula to appease critics, they risk alienating those who genuinely wanted a fresh perspective. The result is a movie that feels indecisive, as though it's being steered by Twitter polls and corporate memos rather than genuine artistic vision. This fiasco has other studios watching closely, taking notes on what not to do when they breathe new life into old stories. And it's not just about the fans or the actors. Investors pay attention when high-profile ventures flop or spark ridicule, particularly when the ridicule is as high-profile as a South Park lampoon. If Disney can't prove they still know how to balance modernization with nostalgia, it could spell larger issues for future projects. The broader question for Hollywood becomes, how do you evolve a classic without losing the magic that that made it classic in the first place. Yet, the drama isn't done. Every rumor about a new South Park special or a leaked behind-the-scenes spat adds another layer to this unfolding story. The stakes are higher than ever, and the clock is ticking on whether Disney can salvage its reputation, or if the entire Snow White endeavor is doomed to be remembered as a cautionary tale. Curious about how all these conflicting forces will collide in the end? Brace yourself. The finale is coming faster than anyone could have imagined.
There were reportedly not even going to be dwarfs either. Rainbow people instead until there was a fan protest. And even the word dwarfs isn't mentioned in this remake. The film has people saying, don't mock sleepy as a neurological condition. And dopey, is it really dopey? That'd be rude.
Despite Disney's best intentions and Rachel Zegler's modern spin on a beloved fairy tale, the live-action Snow White has become a masterclass in how not to handle a reboot. When you take a story cherished for generations and attempt to refit every element to match current cultural dialogues, you run the risk of losing the essence that made the narrative compelling in the first place. As if that wasn't enough, bringing in an actress who voices open disdain for key parts of the original only stirs the pot further. South Park's roast illuminated these issues in a comedic but brutally honest way, highlighting that empty checkbox diversity and dismissive takes on classics don't fool fans, they infuriate them. And with another rumored South Park special aiming to scrutinize the film's commercial fallout, the entire saga may be far from over. Whether Disney learns and adapts or doubles down remains to be seen, but one thing is crystal clear: the public has reached a tipping point for clumsy remakes. It all begs the question, will the entertainment industry finally strike a balance between modern values and faithful storytelling, or will they keep churning out reimagined classics until none of the original charm remains? The answer might determine the future of legacy franchises for years to come. Until then, consider this a cautionary tale. In the age of social media and savage satire, no studio or star is untouchable. If you've got an opinion, and we know you do, let's hear it. Should Disney hold on to tradition, or are bold reinterpretations the way to go? Chime in and keep the conversation rolling, because this story isn't just Disney's or Rachel's. It belongs to every fan who still believes in the magic of a well-told fairy tale.